Hello and welcome to the Refs Need Love To podcast, a show that gets real, raw, and behind the scenes with the hardest job on the pitch, the referee. I'm your host, David Gerson, a grassroots referee with over 10 years of experience and over 1,200 matches under my belt. You can find me online at Instagram and TikTok and my website at refsneedlove2.com. Today, we are focusing on health and fitness for referees, specifically the over 40 crowd, which I am a part of. I'm not far off of 50, got a few months left. Who better to talk about that than Brad Williams, the man behind the Over 40 Fitness Hacks website, YouTube, and podcast. He helps individuals looking to fight the aging process while still enjoying their social lives. Who wouldn't love that? He provides valuable insights, tips, and tricks tailored explicitly for the over 40 crowd. He's been a personal trainer and an owner of 4 different gyms, over 14 years of experience. I'm looking forward to learning something today, and I hope you are too. Brad, welcome to the program.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited.
Oh, no. I'm excited. Are you kidding? I feel like I'm going to gain out of this one today. So tell me, man, how did you get into personal training?
Yeah, so, I grew up here in California, Central California. Always was kind of an athlete playing soccer and various other sports. My dad was a medical doctor. Mom was a nurse. So we kind of already had that at that time, healthiest what you could be upbringing. And I think that was crucial to, keep me going for the rest of my life. And eventually, graduated from Long Beach State, Southern California, and wanted to do something in business. So various different jobs over the years, and my only real passion was, working out, helping other people, running boot camps for places. And, I ended up working my last, real job, corporate job at the Port of Los Angeles, and great pay, a horrible job, hated it. And they had a gym there, and I became the kind of resident personal trainer. So I got my certification, my insurance, and I was running a little side business while I was getting paid. And eventually, my brother banded with me together, and we decided, let's go for it. Hated the corporate world. Let's jump into the, entrepreneurship, and opened up my first gym about 15 years ago in Huntington Beach, California. And just, that was the start of it. And, 15 years later, various different gyms and successes, some failures, and, never wanting to go back to that brick and mortar world at this point, especially after COVID. But now I'm kind of putting myself out there as, I've been a personal trainer for over 15 years. I'm 43 now myself. I started my podcast when I was 40 because, the whole theme of my show is I'm a personal trainer. I hit 40. I'm having those problems that all my clients had. And, I thought I knew everything. So really had to step up my game, find all these different hacks, I call them, or fitness tips. And not only that, but, longevity is very important in my programming as well. So that's kind of my mindset for my show, my mindset for when I'm helping clients out. And, that's where I am now.
Yeah. So what changes? I mean, so when you get to that stage of 40, whether you've been like fit your entire life or, you're really just trying to stay healthy, forget about being like a supreme athlete. How do our bodies change as you start aging, especially post 40?
Yeah. So I think it's such a multitude of things, but one is, we're slowing down more, not just our bodies, and chronologically, but because of work and kids and marriage, probably some injuries at this point. I know 6 years ago, I had a very pivotal moment in my life with a lower back injury, non-workout related, just moving gym equipment. I'm the gym owner, so I'm the bathroom cleaner, the accountant, the website guy, and the mover, which was stupid. Blew out my L5S1, so I'm sure audience over 40 has a whole chock full of injuries that they can attest to. But then our bodies just naturally, this is a progression of aging. It's, that it wants to store more fat for longevity because fat is a more efficient fuel source than carbohydrates and anything else. And it starts prioritizing that. You've already, biologically probably already had kids or, whatever that time frame is, and we're slowing down. It knows that, and it's just harder to do everything. And another component of it too is, the mitochondria that's in all our cells throughout our body. Those are the powerhouses of our cells, helps us remain youthful. By slowing down all those things I just mentioned, your body starts losing these, pretty much starting at 40. It could be a little different for everybody, but exponentially. It just gets worse and worse every decade. And that's a component too of not just building muscle to fight off sarcopenia as you age, but you also got to throw in some fast movements as well. So that's what's great about hearing about, your podcast and all the guys that are listening to you and females, that you're still moving fast, because that's one of the things. Most of my clients, we're done with that now. Now it's slow growing and watching out for injuries. But you've already got that part, pretty much taken care of.
Well, I hope so. I'm not sure. You just go back 1 second. Mitochondria, and then you said something else with an S that I've heard of mitochondria. I think I took biology in high school, and then there was something else with an S. Why are we losing those things, and what can we do to try and keep them?
Yeah, so sarcopenia is that's just over time. It's just part of aging. Aging, they now call it like just a disease. Whether we can cure this or not, it's just part of the cycle of being a human. The best we can do is delay this. So sarcopenia is basically just the functionality of losing muscle cells and muscle mass, no matter what you're doing, over time until you die. It's gonna happen. The whole name of the game is to be smart about what you're doing so you can delay this the longest you can. But I'm sadly to put out there that right now at this point, there's no cure for this. Just, can you delay it and have a very quality and longevity life? That's the main thing. And as far as go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so I shouldn't feel bad when I see that 21-year-old dude in the gym who's just like freaking ripped, like full of muscle. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing I like telling clients is you got to stop comparing yourself to your old 20-year-old self and other 20-year-olds. Start comparing yourself to other, whatever age you are, your peers. Oh my God. One of my favorite things is, and hopefully they're not listening, my fraternity back in college, there's a whole slew of us all the same age, right? And every year I go see them at some function and I just look around and be like, oh, I am doing good.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you need to do.
I agree. I have, a lot of my high school friends and people I've met, from college, when they meet up with me after a long time, like, man, you look the same. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but if you stay active and you're physically fit, whatnot, then everything looks different. Your body, your skin, just the aura you give off feels really, really different. So talk to me a little bit about dealing with older customers. You have this specialty now focusing on people that are over 40 or maybe over 50 and even beyond that. How does your training for them change as opposed to if you were training someone who was like 20 or 25?
Yeah, so a lot of this stemmed from my back injury and having to adjust my workouts, but also everything that happened after 40 with aging and putting a little bit more weight on, even though I was doing the same thing as I was in my 20s and 30s, and just educating myself and going through all these different theories and basically finding out that for the over 40 crowd, it's just, unless you're getting paid to still be that athletic where you need to lift all this weight or run this fast. But for you, it's probably the case. But for a lot of my clients that don't have that, the number one thing is to slow everything down. These bodies, especially with what we know from health and supplements and different programs that are coming out, we're going to be pushing past 100, 110. And our bodies currently, the way we're running these things, are not going to last that long. So slowing everything down and focusing more on what I call time under tension. And, that theory gets thrown out there everywhere in the fitness world and everyone's got their different viewpoints on it. But basically all it is taking a simple exercise like doing a back squat and cutting the weight in half and slowing down the rep movement. So instead of taking, 2 seconds down, 1 second up on a squat, which is kind of a normal pace for a normal workout, what everyone knows, and making that like 5 seconds down, 3 to 4 seconds up. So slowing it down allows you to stay in more time under tension. So that's the duration of how long that exercise is going to take. And using half the weight, saving your joints and saving the tearing of the muscles and everything. And that's another caveat of what people don't understand is they think, lifting as heavy as you can, as fast as you can, that's where you're going to grow your muscle. And it will, but that's not why your muscle's growing. Your muscle's growing from a stimulus response, hormonal response to what you're doing. So that's why the longer you can stay time under tension, saying doing squats with half the weight, but you're probably doing those 8 reps and it's taking you, 10 to 20 seconds longer than the other method, that stimulus response is going to do more for you having a longer duration to build the same amount of muscle mass as what you would have done with that heavier weight. So it's, you know, grasping that theory and helping the over 40 crowd with that, just, oh my God, they get the same results of what they want with less damage to the body. So I think that's the number one most important thing that I kind of switch my clients to.
Yeah, and I tell you, unfortunately, my father was in the hospital last week. He's doing much better now, but I was down in Florida and I went to his community gym and there were a bunch of over 60 people in there working out. And after listening to your podcast and a few episodes and talking about slowing down, I was so frightened watching these people working out, like throwing these weights up and down and just going as quick as they can through the reps. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to get hurt. But also I've had my own experience where I went to work out with my son who was 18 years old a year and a half ago when he was 18 and trying to max on bench and hurting my shoulder. It's just, I think we need to change what we're doing to be able to keep muscle. Now, I do have a question for you though. So for us as referees and people listening to this are either they're referees or they're referee curious or they're the referee sympathizers, but we do have to get out on the pitch and we do have to run and we do have to switch directions pretty quickly. And so how might we build up strength to be able to handle something explosive like a sprint or a quick change of direction? What might we do or how should we be training to be able to deal with that?
Yeah, so starting off, I'd probably put someone in your position kind of on a similar program of, doing stuff slower, time under tension, maybe a little bit more specific type weighted exercises to what you're doing. But also because of what you're doing, I would throw in, a high intensity day since you're already kind of acclimated to that anyways. One high intensity day that's, a few days prior to your actual event. You don't want to do it the day before. You'll burn out your body. But that way your body's kind of sustaining that high intensity mode. It can handle the sprints and a lot of those plyometric movements like jumping, moving side to side. And then the other part is, and I still do with my other clients who are not athletes, but I incorporate balance training is huge, whether you're sprinting or doing athletic stuff or not. And then, definitely throwing in some plyometrics, which is, box jumps, doing things with a little bit more weight, like lunges in motion with maybe a med ball. So it definitely got to push it a little bit more for someone in your position and your audience. But that's easy to cater to. But that's not doing those kind of things every day. So you're still under the same philosophy of we need to tone this down and be a little bit smarter with how we do our splits for the week.
Yeah. So one of the things that is a common injury and something I hear about a lot, so whether it's muscle injuries and pulling calves, pulling hamstrings, but, also one thing that I hear very common, this may be completely separate, is specifically tendons, the Achilles tendon, our knee tendons and things of that nature. Are there any things that we can be doing to stay, supple and flexible and not risk those types of injuries? And because as we get older, I hear about it more and more. When I show up to these high school soccer matches where most of the refs are older, it's like the walking wounded out there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's huge. Just like we mentioned, balance training will help with that, build ankle strength, knee strength to help protect those tendons. But I think in your case, really focusing on dynamic warm-ups versus stretching so much. Dynamic warm-ups should be done in your case to keep your body nice and primed like almost every day. And, that's like running in place, doing high knees, butt kickers, doing karaoke's side to side. And it's just using your body weight, no other weight incorporated. You're not going to break records. It's just to get these movement patterns to where your body's used to it. Then for stretching, on days well before game time, it's okay to do those more deep stretching type exercises, and everything's basically a kinetic chain from the feet up. So if you think of it that way, you need to do some stretches for your ankle, kind of rolling your foot side to side, and you can use bands to kind of give you a little bit more force to play with. and then stretching out that calf, stretching out your quad and hamstrings. All those are real important, especially in your world. Not so much in my slower down, bodybuilding world, which is what I'm kind of more into. But the most important thing is not to do those stretching components, before game day or maybe even the day before. The dynamic warm-ups are more important. And then after that, it's just the game of recovery. You're in the same boat as anyone else who's over 40, whatever type of program they're doing. You need your rest. And, that's sleeping well and, rehydrating, making sure you're getting a lot of electrolytes. And I think that's even more so in your world of, how fast that pace is being a referee.
Yeah, I tell you, I always get so worried for my colleagues when I show up to a match and I'm out there doing my warm-up. So I do a dynamic warm-up at about 10 minutes long before every match, and I go through all of my motions and lunges and the karaokes and the butt kickers and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll see another ref my age or older, like doing a stretch, again, an old school stretch, right? A quad stretch and maybe like a little bit of a side lunge. And then they're going out on the pitch and running. And I'm always like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
Dude, you are right next to an injury, man.
Yeah, and some of those things, even for the well-trained athlete who's got put them in a program, it's just gonna happen. That's why I quit doing flag football in my late 30s. But you got to do what you got to do. But definitely do it in components. Like you need to work on ankle strength today. The next day you need to work on knee strength. Doing ladders, I think, is huge in your field. I don't know if you've ever seen those agility ladders. Not only does that work on balance, but it works on your ankles and your knees at the same time. And there's all these different combos you can just watch on YouTube and just copy it. I think those are just huge for lateral movements, all those smaller muscles that help protect your joints and ligaments to help, something not happen horrible like an Achilles tear or something like that.
That's so interesting. I've 2 years ago, I actually started doing jump rope. And I tell you, within 3 months of jumping rope, I used to have some serious Achilles tendonitis. I have no issue, none at all. But I've never tried ladder, and I've seen people use a ladder before. Not my peers, but usually younger guys. But that's actually something interesting to pick up. That kind of gets me to my next question about favorite exercises. Let's talk about what kind of work lower all the way on up to core and upper body. So again, I'm 49. My audience, I think, is mostly guys who are over 40 here. What would be some of your favorite exercises, lower body, for us over 40 people?
Yeah, so starting up from the feet up, like I said, balance and agility ladders for everybody.
Can you talk about that? You say balance. I want to make sure I understand. Are you talking about standing on a Bosu ball and bending over? What does balance mean to you?
Yeah, so it's all those things. It's, first, starting with a new client, we'll usually do like flat discs or balanced discs, not that Bosu, because it's a little more flatter, less risk to injury of them rolling their ankle or something. Having them doing simple squats. We could pass medicine balls to them. You could end up putting one foot on one of those discs to do lunges, put it on the back foot. Everything is about shocking the body and making everything different. Maybe graduating to like the Bosu ball where you have to use a little bit of ankle strength to help pull in your feet, because naturally that rounded shape of the Bosu ball kind of wants you to fall to the sides. And then doing stuff in motion. So lunges, walking lunges and twisting, that's all components of, working on your balance and eye-hand coordination, feet coordination, not just getting the workout for your legs. And you can incorporate a little bit of small weights on it, but if your focus is balance, probably should be either body weight or very lightweight. And then there's, you can balance on one foot and even do exercises on one foot. So moving up kind of towards legs, every day I'm doing single leg something, whether or not I want to do deadlifts, RDLs, or back squats or something, single legs first. And I do them every single time. It just gives that leg a chance to, work on ankle strength, work on knee strength, because you're having to balance while you're doing this motion. And you're usually doing, slower, safer exercises with weight now, because you're doing more deadlifts or squats, and you can put a little bit of weight on there. And then graduating to, both legs firmly on the ground, and you can, do thrusters, RDLs, deadlifts. One of my favorite ones, once you get everything warmed up, is just doing RDLs. And that's kind of a version of a deadlift where your butt's sticking the back a little bit farther and your head's fully down. So you're getting a little bit of lower back in there too. But under my theory of time under tension, you've got half the weight cut off. You're taking 5 seconds up, 5 seconds down. And you are just, by 6 reps in, you are feeling that burn. And it's just one of the greatest exercises to get your hamstrings, your calves, your glutes, your quads, everything. So that's, starting with that.
Yeah, I will tell you. So after listening to your podcast, I had a workout night. And again, I don't get to the gym very often, so I'm usually doing legs and I'm doing upper body too. But my gosh, I swear, normally for upper body, I'm very scared about using heavy weights because I don't want to hurt myself and damage my shoulders again. But I did what you said. And instead of, doing, dumbbell flies with like 50 pounds, I was doing dumbbell flies with like 30 pounds. And I was just going like, 8 seconds up, and like 8 seconds down. And man, I felt it everywhere, like everywhere the next day. And I didn't feel like I was going to hurt myself, but I definitely felt like I was working out. I was breaking a sweat and all of my muscles were, as you said, time under tension. I felt it. But I didn't feel like I was at risk, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I think for upper body stuff, anything where you're using dumbbells, I like that. Same reason, you're independently having to hold these dumbbells and, using smaller muscles to help balance. But, graduate up to machines with a bar, and that's fine. But I think, a lot of people in the fitness space, kind of the old school bodybuilders will hit me up, no, mechanical tension is more important than time under tension because it builds muscle faster and this and that, and you can get progressive overload. And my thing is to them, first of all, I mean, where's the set point where you're saying that you're done lifting all this heavy weight? What are you getting out of it? 2, I can still progressive overload with my theory as well. When you're slowing everything down, that 5 seconds down, 5 seconds up, if you can go up in weight and you're used to it, go up in weight. But it's still half the weight of what you used to do. So it may take maybe a little bit longer to get the physique that, a bodybuilder wants, but that bodybuilder will still get that physique, slowing it down and using half the weight. I think it's just safer, and I've never felt as good as I do today with this style of workout than I did in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I have to tell you, there's a lot of things that I don't do at the gym because of I feel like I'm risking myself, like my back. Like you talk about a barbell back squat, like, everyone's like, oh, it's the most important exercise you can do. But, I felt nervous or concerned. Is my form right? Am I going to hurt myself? I don't want a back injury. So I've really avoided it at the gym. But, now I'm thinking to myself, well, what if I go back and instead of throwing the 45s up there, I just put the 25s up there and I take my time and I really go down and concentrate on form. Can I turn that into a good workout and something that's really going to yield results for me? Because again, at my age, I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I just want to be lean and, safe and fit enough to do what I want to do on the weekend.
Yeah. And you know what? There's a million exercises to do the same thing too. I just mentioned the barbell back squat. Some people can't have the flexibility to keep it back there. That's fine. Grab a pair of dumbbells or do a goblet squat where you're holding the dumbbell with both hands. There's so many different workarounds to everything to work with people. The main thing is you should feel good while you're doing each exercise. If it doesn't feel good, then stop it. If you want to go to a physical therapist to work on stuff, you can, but don't do stuff that doesn't work for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think you're talking about don't try and push through the pain.
Exactly.
Right? I know. Everyone needs to learn that lesson. I need to remind myself of that lesson every now and then. So we were going up. So we did lower legs. We did kind of like the upper legs and glutes. How about for core? Anything you recommend there?
Yeah. So for core, I kind of philosophy in my 20s was, shock the body with as many different core exercises as you can. And throughout life and talking to a million different physical therapists, going through the injury I had, pretty much now it's 80% of the time should probably just be planks or planks in motion or side planks. Because, any extra motion you have on your vertebrae is just not the best. If we're talking about longevity and God, I already blew one out and I have to worry about this. There's so much that a plank can do for you. most of the time should be spent on that. And then the rest of the 20% of the time, I think, should be, you can work on other things. The main thing is not to do the same one every time. The worst thing is watching someone who's just doing sit-ups, and one, they're probably doing them wrong and using their hip flexors and not their core, but they just do it every day, all day, and then they end up quick trip to the physical therapist because they've got a whole slew of problems. If you had just mixed it up, your body probably would have repaired itself, even if you were doing something a little bit off. So that's kind of my thing. And I think it's better for the body to always constantly be shocking it with different exercises, so your body never gets used to the same routine.
Cool. And then just the last one, of course, because you want to look good in your ref jersey out there. Upper body, any suggestions there?
Yeah, so I mean, same thing. You could pick a whole slew of different exercises. It's, time under tension could still get you that, physique that you're looking for. And my favorite ones, I like doing incline press with a bar. I just think dumbbells, it's a little risky being in that position because your shoulder's a little compromised being impinged in that position. But almost every other exercise for back and chest, I just use dumbbells, whether it's flies, chest press, military rows, and shoulders. Anything overhead, I think, maybe even lighter than you think, and go even slower than you think. Because with your shoulders, you got your rotators to think about too. Everything will grow even with a quarter of the weight, not even half the weight, a quarter of the weight. It still will if you slow it down. And I think over 40 crowd, God, between Achilles injuries and rotator injuries, those are the top two. Cannot have them.
Absolutely.
You'll never be the same person ever again either.
First off, it's a really long recovery on a rotator cuff. It doesn't sound like a lot, but you're out of action for like a year.
6 months, 6 months to a year.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I have a friend who's a big tennis player, and now he's a pickleball player. But he was an amazing tennis player, but had both rotator cuffs go and had to go through a really, really stringent recovery. But he was out. He couldn't ski. He couldn't do a lot. It was a big issue. So next thing I want to talk to you about. So thank you so much for sharing your insight. Again, the moral of the story is slow it down, cut the weight. If you are someone who needs to be performing at a high level, and I think some of the refs who are listening to this still do need to be able to motor up and down that pitch, that it's okay to have a high intensity day during the week. Just don't be doing it the day before game day, and you don't feel like you need to do it 4 days a week. So
exactly.
I think I've got kind of your high points there. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is nutrition. So just again, in our referee world, generally speaking, outside of high school season, we've got games normally that are all weekend long. So I've got a game tonight, Friday night. I've got 3 games tomorrow, 3 games on Sunday. So the weekends are bananas in season, usually for us. So what should we be kind of focusing on? Again, maintain weight, like not gain a lot of weight because our metabolism slow down during the week, but also make sure that we're going to have the energy we need to be able to perform on the weekend. So can you talk about kind of midweek versus night before and maybe even game day?
Yeah. So besides just a healthy diet overall for everyone, right, and staying hydrated, more specific to your field is water is not good enough, plain water. It needs to be electrolyte water. Your body just works so much better when it has all the minerals it needs, especially potassium. That's one that a lot of people are lacking in a normal American diet. We're very high sodium, low potassium, and it needs to be flipped the other way. And it's a very, very dangerous supplement to take, by the way, if you don't know what you're doing. So the best is just buying electrolyte water that already has all these minerals in it in its natural form. And I think that should be huge the day before and the day of what you guys are doing. And then the other thing is, and I talk a lot about in my podcast that, for the over 40 crowd who's not doing what you're doing, kind of low carb is in my realm of longevity and, looking good and feeling good. In your guys' field, carbs are huge. You're still producing, you're still athletic. That needs to still be a focus. Doesn't need to be a focus 7 days a week though. So that would mention for you guys, you want to keep lean and mean, keep your form, and do more carb cycling. So, if you got a Saturday big day, then by Friday morning should be your carb cycling day starting, going real heavy by Friday night, and then heavy Saturday morning. And then the other thing I was going to mention, because I know a lot of refs, like you even mentioned, you had like 4 in one day that you were doing. Sometimes you can't eat, you can't do anything but drink water. So one, you're drinking your electrolyte water, And two, you can get a carbohydrate powder that's just carbohydrates. That's it. You mix in with your water. You don't need, you feel like you're drinking water still. You're not eating anything, but that'll give you the energy sustained to help you through a few hours of matches. So I think that's a good tip for your crowd.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, so again, I want to go back and clarify one thing. You talked about potassium. Are there foods that are high in potassium that can come naturally that we can just add into our diet? How do we get that into the system?
Yeah, absolutely. So sodium and potassium have an inverse relationship with each other. The more potassium you have, it actually helps push sodium out of your body, which could hold a lot of bloat too. And then more sodium into your body pushes out the potassium, which is not good for muscle contraction and performance. So, I'm not a doctor. I always say talk with your doctor, but you can Google what's the RDA, and it's usually a 2-to-1 ratio. And so if you don't want to do supplements, which I wouldn't recommend, getting it naturally is just as easy. Just Google what are the highest potassium foods. So it's always the dark green leafy vegetables, artichokes in there. Banana is one of the highest fruits. Coconut water, if you want to get a little hydrated, electrolytes already built in, and mega high potassium, coconut water is a perfect choice. And then pretty much all meats have potassium. It's more of how much are you salting these meats. And there's nothing wrong with having, clean salt added to your meals. It just needs to be in ratio of what you're eating. So, if you're putting in, if you count and you're doing like 200 milligrams of sodium, on your meat, half what's in it and half that you're putting on it, then you need to eat enough meat that's putting up about 400 milligrams of potassium. So, it's a little bit of research and a little bit of kind of biohacking with yourself to see how you feel with it. But once you got that under control, oh man, performance just starts skyrocketing after that.
Yeah, no, I'm a big spinach fan. So I'm all about my spinach. Love my spinach. And you talked about healthy carbs. I love my fruit as well. And today I had a little bit of pasta for lunch. So I got a big couple days ahead of me. So talk to me now. Okay, so we've had a long day on the pitch. What do we do for recovery? Again, we may be performing again the next day. Man, we may just need to get out of bed on Monday to go to work. So what do we do for recovery?
Yeah, so for recovery, you're finishing off your carb cycling. Still, recover day is still huge on carbs. Replenish what you lost. If your diet, if you're okay with having carbs after that, you can kind of tone it down. Or if you're in kind of in my realm of low carb is better, then you could, cut down all the way. But I think that day after you need that carbs to refill. Sleep is very important. It should be just part of your routine that, I usually sleep 6 hours. Sorry, at least one day out of the week, get 8 to 9 hours of sleep after, one of your matches. Mm-hmm. And then other than that, there's always supplements that can help. ZMA and glutamine are kind of the big two that's really known and researched that if you want to spend a little bit of money, I've used both and they both work, but then I just get lazy because I start messing around with other supplements and, you only have so much in your, budget to pay for everything. So I don't mind feeling a little bit sore, but, I'm also not having to recover from a crazy, day of running around reffing either. So.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I mean, it's wild. I know my fellow colleagues who are listening to this and myself, this weekend, it's not going to be running the whole time. It's a good amount of it is walking, probably half of it, but the other half is going to be running and sprinting. And I guarantee if the weather cooperates this weekend, it's going to be about 20 miles on the pitch easily 20 miles across those matches. 'Cause I have 5 centers on 7 matches that I'm doing. So, and I average about 5 miles, per center that I do. So it will be a lot. That recovery is going to be important. Well, do you have any other advice, Brad, any other thoughts for that over 40 crowd, anything to inspire them or just advice for them to be thinking about as they move forward and then they age gracefully and want to continue to stay active?
Yeah. My biggest thing is, and I've already said it a bunch of times, you need to start thinking about slowing down. Whether you have a day or 2 days that you're doing what you guys are doing, over 40 crowd, there's so much more benefit to rest and recovery than what it was like in our 20s and 30s. If you're constantly that type of person that's going, 6 days hard in the gym, thinking you're going to get all these results. I can do the same amount in 2 to 3 days and resting the rest of the time, as long as I'm getting proper nutrition, my protein, and, really focusing on my workouts when I do them, versus that same person who's the diehard gym junkie. And I think it's just not worth it. We're both going to have the same bodies, maybe a slight performance increase on the other part, but they're the ones that are going to have all the injuries, all the ligament tears and busted rotator cuffs, and it's just not going to work for you. And it gets harder and harder every decade. So, slowing everything down, working more. My biggest thing is you got to chop these things into different buckets. I like to say it's not just, okay, I work out, that's it. No, that's one bucket. Then there's diet. Inflammation is huge. Stress, physical stress, mental stress is huge for over 40 crowd. Sleep, we've already talked about. And you don't have to be perfect in each one of them, but you need to dabble in each one of them to optimize your body. So when you are doing one thing that you like, whether it's working out or doing sports or whatnot, you have all the other buckets at least somewhat covered to help you in the long run. So,
yeah, I think that's such great advice. I mean, I think for all of us, if I could sum up what you're saying, you're just saying work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's huge. And I tell you, so I'm going through my mentor certification right now. And, as a referee on the pitch, I had gotten some feedback because I'm trying to bust my butt up and down the pitch. And the feedback from the mentor is, take it easy. You don't need to bust your butt every single time, and work on your anticipation of where that ball is going to be and where that play is going to be, so you can just keep moving, keep walking in that position and anticipate where the play is going to be, as opposed to always having to run from behind the play. That's not a good thing at all. And so I think that's something for us as we age. Again, Brad, you talked about nutrition, you talked about recovery, you talked about sleep, you talked about working out differently to be able to do all the things that we want to do on the weekend. Because again, my people who listen to this, they are active. We want to stay active, but it's going to be a different kind of active than if we were 18, 19, 20 years old versus, 49, 50, 51 years old. It's going to be different. It doesn't mean that we're worse than anything, but it does have to be different as we age. That's for sure.
Exactly. My slogan is, fitness after 40 doesn't have to be this hard. So that's kind of my mentality and what I preach to all my clients.
I love it, man. So Brad, how do people find you? If people want to continue listening to you and learning from you, where do they go?
Yeah, so easiest way is follow me on whatever podcast player you like listening to. I'm on everything. It's Over 40 Fitness Hacks, and that's 40, the number, not spelled out. And same thing for my website, over40fitnesshacks.com, and that's same thing, 40, not spelled out. That's the two best ways.
Outstanding, Brad. I cannot thank you enough for imparting us with your wisdom and knowledge. I know I'm going to change how I do things as I go forward, and I expect many of the listeners are going to change how they do things going forward, and I can't wait to hear from all you out there as to how it has affected you. All right, Brad, thank you so much. I'm just going to roll us out here, but again, anytime you've got something to impart, and if you have any soccer questions, you know where to go.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, David.
Outstanding. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. These tips and tricks are important for everyone, but especially for us referees who are getting up there in age. We may have more wisdom and experience than our counterparts that are in their teens and 20s, but our bodies are different, and they need to be treated differently as well. If you like today's pod, please check out my social media channels on Instagram and TikTok, the website, and the merch at refsneedlove2.com. Father's Day is around the corner, people. Treat yourself or someone else. If you like the podcast, please send it to everyone you know. I appreciate your support. And as always, I hope your next game is red card free.